Baradzes. I wish I could say that I still speak Armenian well, but I don't. It's been a long time. It's a true honor to be here this afternoon, recognizing educators who are doing what accomplished educators do best, preparing our next generation of community members, helping them learn from the past to create a better future for all of us. So some of you might wonder why I'm standing in front of you, why I have been invited to speak with you today. I served for 2 years as a Peace Corps volunteer in Armenia. I was an English teacher, but I'm not here because of what I did in Armenia. I am here because of what I learned and how I've taken those lessons with me throughout my 20-year career in education, to my classroom and to my community. And I'm getting a little bit choked up because I haven't been in a room surrounded with beautiful Armenian people in so long. And I'm not Armenian, but I definitely feel like Armenia is in my roots. So my service in Armenia began in 1999 and ended in 2001. And I remember the discomfort and the struggle of adjusting to life in a new country and culture, the experience of being a newcomer, and how much help I needed in my transition to living in this new community. Life in Armenia challenged my perceptions, broadened my perspectives, and taught me about connections and building relationships. And I forgot to go, so there I am. And some of my most vivid memories of my service in Armenia come from the discomfort and challenge of moving to and living in a culture different from my own. And getting my first haircut during training was quite the experience. I knew so little Armenian at the time, so it was quite hilarious to communicate using only gestures to explain what I wanted. The stylist taught me patience, as she gave me so much grace as I fumbled through trying to communicate what I wanted in a haircut. I must have been quite the spectacle, because you can see the many Armenian women there who slowly trickled in at the hilarity. And I remember marshutni rides with total strangers who would always talk with me and share their food with me during the long ride to Yerevan. I remember Nortari and going from house to celebrate the new year with my neighbors and being welcomed into every home, even homes in which I didn't know a single person. I also remember the simple tasks that became such a challenge: collecting water once a week, shopping in the market, and how delicious fruits were because they were only available in season. Doing my laundry by hand, and how eager my neighbors were to help me through every new experience. The Armenian people showed me that happiness doesn't come from creature comforts, but rather from what really matters in life, our connections with one another. My deepest connection to this day, and I wish you could see it better, but this is my host family, who welcomed me with open arms, gave me grace in adapting to life in Armenia, took my hand, and helped me navigate my new environment. I carry their example with me in my work as an educator. Every day, a new student walks into my classroom. I worked and lived in Alaverdi, way up north. It's beautiful. That's a picture from when I was there. There was perfect seasons, and I got to travel by cable car or Jopa, to work every day. I worked in a small elementary school teaching English to third graders, a couple of my kids. I learned patience, to be creative in order to engage students, and how to start exactly where my students were, instead of having expectations about where they should be. In those days, I didn't know it, but that experience would launch me into a 20-year career as an educator. And those lessons about patience, creativity, engagement, and meeting students where they are would become the foundation of how I teach. I now teach in the Newcomer Center, a specialized English language development program at Ferris High School in Spokane, Washington. I teach brand new immigrant and refugee students to our nation. I get to be their first teacher in the United States. Every day, I apply the lessons I learned in Armenia to impact the lives of my students and to, in turn, be impacted by them. Living in Armenia taught me so much about adjustment, to observe, to listen, and to learn before acting. These lessons are invaluable every day in my classroom as I welcome new students and help them to navigate their new environment. Just as my friends and my host family did for me in Armenia. And on a much larger scale, Armenia taught me about strength, perseverance, and healing. So prior to going to Armenia, I did some research on the country I would soon call home. That's when I learned about the genocide perpetrated on Armenia by Turkey, and how Armenia came to be a former Soviet republic. I learned of this devastating history, and I knew I would be immersed in a nation whose story would stay with me well beyond my 2 years living there. And in 1999, the year I first became a Peace Corps volunteer, Armenia had only been independent from the USSR for 8 years. And the nation was still figuring out how to be Armenia again. From my observations, you were healing and taking back your country, speaking Armenian instead of Russian, restoring your beautiful churches, and reasserting your complex culture and showing the world how strong you were. Now, 20 years later, Armenia is a whole new nation. There it is. And I haven't had the chance to go back, but I hope so. With so much pride and honor. From my perspective, Armenia has grown from being the victim of an atrocity which impacted every aspect of life in your nation to being strong advocates at the forefront of preventing genocide nationwide. You've turned your pain into action. I see this in the confidence of my friends and family in Armenia. I see this in the Armenian American communities here in the United States. And I see this in the educators being honored here this afternoon. Armenia is a nation who has become confident and found their place in our global world. Thank you for this work. Thank you for building up and maintaining your beautiful culture in Armenia and for bringing that beautiful and complex culture here to the United States. Thank you for fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves and working so hard to prevent genocide. Thank you for inviting me to celebrate with you today. Thank you for teaching us and being a positive example for all nations around the world. Thank you.